Eu sou o Zé Antônio Algodoal, faço parte do corpo de curadoria do Inédit e hoje a gente está aqui para falar com o Bill Badgley, diretor do Rebel Dread, um documentário incrível sobre um dos meus heróis, que é Don Letts, né? Queria agradecer, Bill, thank you to join us. Thank you, Don.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to talk with you. So I want to start asking about the film, Bill. How do you have the idea to do this documentary? Because I love Don. Don is inspiring people for me, for my
Absolutely.
life, for you as well.
Absolutely. Well, I met Don through the previous film, Here to Be Heard, about the slits. As I'm sure you know, Don had a lot of the footage that we wanted to license for that movie. So I got to know Don a little bit through that project. So I already knew him when Phil Hunt, who financed the finishing funds for Here to Be Heard, came to us and was like, we really want to do a film about Don. And I already knew Don, so I was like, absolutely. As you know, Don is like a total character that immediately grabs you and you meet him. You don't like, oh, I forgot meeting Don. No one ever says that. So it was just immediately a great opportunity and really excited to, and honored to get this opportunity to try to help tell his story.
Yes, that was a great story. And Don, I want to ask you, you are a filmmaker. How was to be the subject of film? Is it easy for you?
It was horrible. I like to be behind the camera. I've only been in front of the camera once. Actually twice, but one of them was an acting role. We won't get into that. Bill made it as comfortable as he could, and he had a very difficult job because, I'm a director. So it was very hard for me to shut the fuck up, to be quite honest. But I tried my hardest and let Bill do his thing. It was the only way that it would work. I didn't want to be involved in the creative aspect whatsoever. All I tried to do was tell the truth.
And Bill, the story of Don is so rich that I think that is so difficult to cut for just 1.5 hours. How was it for you?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think for me, I think it's always about trying to, because like you said, life is so hairy, it's so multifaceted, there's so many different things going on, especially for, people you would make a film about or people who have done quite a lot. So I think it's always about trying to find that focal length that's going to be something that you can run a 90-minute narrative around and not a 700-hour movie. So I think with Don, it was immediately what was really intriguing to me was the story of a man, initially a young man trying to find his way in a really complicated environment. And that was the thing that really gravitated me to the project, and seeing the way that he fearlessly engaged in that effort, I thought could be really certainly inspiring for me, and could be inspiring for anybody. So I just kind of use that as the focal length of what are the things that are happening in this story that are plot points along a trajectory of finding out who you are, because we all have to do that. And we all, I think, end up being someone that's a little bit different than we thought initially. It's part of the voyage of, adulthood. And I just thought it was a special, beautiful story. And that was my guiding principle, I guess.
Okay. Someone talks in the film that Don, that you always is in a mission to achieve something. You do lots of things. I want to ask you, what do you want to achieve today?
Damn, that's an interesting question, especially in light of the whole Black Lives Matter. Because this film was made pre-COVID, obviously, and pre the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And I do sometimes wonder how different the film would be if I was interviewed today.
Because you always...
What do I want to achieve today? That's such a... Now you've got me, and Don's not often stumped for words. What do I want to achieve? I want to make my next goddamn film. I want to make a film.
I was just going to say, yeah.
I want to make another film in Jamaica. I just want to keep on creating, you know, and hopefully kind of make, it sounds corny, but make the world a slightly better place by turning people on to my culture and other cultures. It's what I've always done. You know, I think, especially in the whole Black Lives Matter and the cultural climate right now, it's really important that we become closer by understanding our differences. And it's funny, this Black Lives Matter thing, you know, over the last 3 months, I feel like I've been psychologically beaten up, man. And it even had me checking myself to see, you know, what have I been doing in the last 30, 40 years? Have I been contributing to the cause, or have I been tap dancing? And I literally started to look at some of the projects and some of my films and some of the music I've made. And I quickly came to realize that it's inherently who I am. It's always been there, you know, using my culture to push things forward.
I think that in your whole life, you put some questions for you during all the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of my work is centered on my personal experience, which is obviously Black. So I've always gravitated towards people that are not defined by their color. That's why I've done documentaries on people like Sun Ra or George Clinton, for instance. You know, I'm what you call first generation British born Black. You know, I was born in the UK, a child of this whole Windrush thing. And we were always made to feel like second class citizens. And it's only through my creativity that I've been able to prove to people that, you know, we're far from that, man. Far from that.
Okay. Bill, how was for you to understand the story of Don? Because it's so complex subject. How do you have any difficulties to this?
Yeah, my thing is always to open my heart as much as I can and try to hear the story that's being told to me as much as I possibly can, and then use whatever, everything that I am in order to tell that story. So I think for me, it's always about, you know, just being like really open and realizing that I'm not telling my story. I really like I can't remember if it's Pennebaker or Maisels who said, you know, the documentarian's art is in where they decide to point the camera. You know, these projects are really difficult. They take a really long time. And so to me, it's really important. You're really literally talking about giving a couple years of your life to someone else. So for me, it's really important that decision be made smartly. And Don was someone that I just didn't have any reservations about that telling that his heart is pure, his heart is true, and that the lessons that are going to come out of his mouth and from his life are going to be things that are going to make the world a better place. And so all that work becomes something in that way. So I think it's just about, it's a vague answer, but I think it's about surrendering to the project. And when I'm working on something, it's literally all I think about for good or for bad. It's like all I think about for the course of that project. So.
And I think that Don is a very inspiring people. He is one of my heroes, especially because I'm a musician. You're a musician as well. You have a band, Federation X.
Oh, me? Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. For a long. I've been a touring band for 15 years. Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. After all this time, I didn't know that. I know you got a band. I know you got a funky hairdo.
Yeah, I've toured all over the world. Europe, Israel, America, many times. That's how I got into music docs.
Yeah,
what's the name of the band?
It was called Federation X. It was like it's like a Northwest power trio, like Melvins-esque.
Okay, all right. Damn, you're a dark horse.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. And Don, how was the experience for you as a musician in the AD?
You know, it's funny. I think people ought to know that I was the only person in the group that couldn't play a musical instrument. And that's why we had all the samples and dialogue, because early on I had to do something. I couldn't just stand on stage with my dark glasses looking cool. So, you know, I started to put all the dialogue and sample thing, and that gave the band an identity. But I quickly realized you don't get paid for stealing other people's shit. So I threw myself into writing lyrics. And the first lyric I wrote with Mick's help was E equals MC squared. And then I co-wrote 50% of the lyrics with Mick on all our albums. So that's really where my strength was in lyric writing. I, to this day, can't play an instrument. In fact, when we played live, I had colored stickers on my keyboard to show me what to do. You don't get much more punk rock than that, trust me. And funnily enough, when we did the reunion in 2011, I was obviously somewhat older and my eyesight wasn't so great. So the stickers on my keyboard were much bigger.
Yes, I understand it. Don, let me ask you something. In the film, there are some key moments in your life. When you met Vivienne and Malcolm, when you go to the show of Marvin Gaye show, when you heard James Brown, when you see the Who rehearsing, and when you pick the camera to be a documentary. So in all these moments, what's the most important for you that was the real key moment in your life?
Oh man, I mean, I'd have to go back to seeing the Who, and it wasn't a rehearsal, it was what you call a production rehearsal, which means they played as live. And I saw them when I was 14 years old. I went after school. I was like 15 feet away from the stage. Townsend's doing the windmills. You know, I can see the whites of Keith Moon's eyes, man. And it was at that point that, you know, I realized that I wanted to be a part of this world. I didn't necessarily want to be in a band or be a singer. All I know is that it opened the door to a world, and I'd like to think I've been there ever since. But that was a key moment for me.
Yeah. And what about the first trip to Jamaica? It's
Yeah, well, if you get me thinking about key moments, I mean, going to Jamaica with Johnny Rotten's right up there, as was meeting Bob Marley, as was making the film Dancehall Queen. There's been a few. I'm an old man. I'm as old as rock and roll.
No, you're not old.
And there's still more. You know, we only like there's more to come. I've just finished a music video for Sinead O'Connor that's all about Black Lives Matter, and it couldn't have been more perfectly timed for me.
Yes. Do you finish now?
Just finished it. It comes out at the beginning of October.
Oh, great. Great. Bill, every time I talk with Don Letts, I met him the last time he came to Brazil. I always learn something. What do you learn in this contact with Don Letts?
Don't make films with other directors.
he was totally exaggerating that. He was a total sweetheart about that.
I had to shut up. I had to kind of suck it up and just let you do your thing. It was the only way it was going to work, man. Because I'm not a complete moron, I was worried about that initially. I was like, man, what is that going to be like? But it was actually, in some ways, it was almost easier, because usually I am dealing with people who don't have any concept of film, you know, and film is so slow. I mean, it's a lot slower than music. And so a lot of times when I'm dealing with musicians, they trust you and they like you, but they're like, why is this taking so long? But Don, you know, understands better than I do the film industry. So, you know, there were a lot of things that were going on that didn't require explanation. And so that was really nice. Yeah. You're asking me what I learned about him today? I didn't know that he made a video for Sinead O'Connor. That's pretty cool. But I told you, literally like 5 days ago, man. Literally. It's hot off the press.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. That's really cool.
And Don, you told in the film that everything you are came from music.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm of the vinyl generation. I've got an analog attitude, and back in my day, there was no other form of information and inspiration. It was just music.
What do you think about the relationship from the young people with the music today? Because I think that's so different.
Young people, don't ask me about young people. They're freaking me out at the moment, man. I can't fucking speak anymore with the young people. Everything's like, oh man, some of them are too right on for me. I gotta be honest. You see this thing the other day with Adele, poor girl? You see any of that? I was gonna say I'm going off script here, but I'm not, because this is the cultural climate where we're in. She was in the papers the other day. It was Carnival, and she had braids in her hair, and she's wearing a Jamaican bikini. And she got a whole heap of shit from people saying it was cultural appropriation, cultural. And then you look who's complaining, and he's kind of over-zealous young white kids. Black people didn't give a shit. We loved it. You know, and all of a sudden, you know, people like Rihanna and Popcorn and all kind of people having to stand up and say, you know, white people, chill out. If you're going to get involved about something serious. You know, don't get involved with something just showing a bit of appreciation. You know, the Bob Marley estate ain't making T-shirts to sell to fucking Jamaicans, you know?
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, I've gone off script there, but anyway.
That's okay.
Hey Don, I'm curious, do you like Billie Eilish?
She's not my thing, but you know what? It's good that there's somebody else that's not playing up to the industry standards and norms. You know what I'm saying? And that's refreshing. That alone. There's another example out there for, I was going to say for women. I don't know if I can even say for women, for other people out there. This is the climate we're in. Do you know what I mean? Where it's hard to say, you know, that the whole, I don't want to go there. Let's not go there.
No, that's okay.
But young people, yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of pressure on them, but they've got to focus that energy on the things that are really going to affect their lives.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe the environment, the time that we live is so different than the 70s and the 80s.
That's what time does, man. Time does that.
Because I think that in some way, the 70s and the 80s are more challenges. To the people.
I think the fact that, you know, things weren't so easy and accessible, you know, pre the internet and all that stuff, you know, you had to have a lot more passion and commitment. Do you know what I mean? And then the internet came along and affordable technology, and it all became a bit too easy. And I think that passion and that pain and that struggle is part of the creative process. And if you take that away, it all becomes mediocre. I think I said something like this in the film. I hope I did. Shit, I hope I did.
Yes. Bill, what do you think about it? Oh, I think that Bill's gone.
Oh, I think that people are basically only limited by themselves, and there's always been medium changes, you know, throughout history. And I'm sure that when this discussion first started coming up in my lifetime, I thought about, like, did people get really upset about, like, poster art when it went from hand drawn to Xerox? Which, you know, now, like, Xerox, we consider those like really cool and old school and stuff. Like, did that conversation also happen then?
Yeah.
When the guys were sitting at their desks, like, hand drawing the posters, and now the punks are, like, you know, copying stuff and pasting stuff. So I think that people really are only limited by themselves, you know.
That's a good point. The medium isn't the problem, it's the people.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that there's no excuse or there's no replacement for going there. You know, going there, being there, because that human interaction, I think, is sort of what I hear when Don's saying this stuff. If you remove that from the equation and it's about you and your experience, you're removing a lot, and it could be detrimental.
Yeah, I got to say, while we're having this conversation, it's about balance, because all this shit has a place, has a purpose. You know what I mean? It's just about balance, man. I'm not a Luddite.
Okay. And Bill, in the end of the film, you're using George Harrison music.
I was totally surprised to get that song. To be totally honest with you, that was like one of the songs that I put in there that was kind of like messing with the producer who was clearing that stuff. I was just like, you know, and then he called me up and he was like, "Oh, thanks so much for putting that in there." And I was like, "Yeah, I was just messing around." And then he cleared it. And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay."
Yes, because I love the Beatles, and I saw in the film it was a surprise for me that Don was a fan of the Beatles.
Yeah, Beatles fan. Did I talk about the Paul McCartney film in the film? Did I talk in our doc, Bill?
No, you don't talk about it. There's just a picture of you guys together.
Because maybe I didn't mention that, but I actually got to make a film for Paul McCartney, and one of the biggest buzzes of my life. I didn't mention that in the doc. God damn.
Well, I have to say that one of the craziest moments for me during the film was sitting next to Don while he was texting Paul McCartney. I was like, really freaked me out, like to just be that.
So I was making the film while you were making this.
I don't know. You was texting him about something else, and it was just weird.
We're not bosom buddies. It must have been.
No, but I think you were texting him about something about Rebel Dread or something. I don't know what you were texting about. I was so like blown away that like you're texting. I was like, Paul McCartney texts.
I can't believe I didn't mention that I made a film for him. Anyway, that was one of the most touching moments of my life because it took me back to what it was like. I remember interviewing him. And inside, I felt like crying because it took me back to being a fan. And it reminded me of the power and the potential music has to change people's lives. Yeah. You know, because I've been around the world a few times and interviewed a lot of people, man. Jaded, yeah, I could be a little bit jaded, but that brought me right back to that moment, that initial spark of, for instance, seeing The Who when I was 14 years old. And for a lot of people, music still has that potential.
Yes, that's the most important thing. I think so. I want to thank you so much for this interview. But before I go, I want to tell you, Don, that I have 4 heroes in the music. That was Paul McCartney, David Bowie, Joe Strummer, and you. So it's an honor to speak with you.
Shit, and I've met all of them. I've met or worked with all of them. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, man.
Brilliant.
Shit, I'm honored to be in that roll call. I don't know if I qualify yet, but I am working on it. One day I'll be like, yeah, what about it? But right now I'm working on that.
Yes, and you're still inspiring us. You're a fantastic person. I want to thank you so much for all you are doing for all those years. And thank you, Bill, to bring his story to us. Because I think that no one will see this film and it's impossible to be indifferent after this film.
Oh, so good. Great.
Yeah, respect, bro. I gotta take my hat off. I mean, yeah, you did it. You did it. Considering what a dick I can be, you did an excellent job.